So you've been an atheist a while?
Yeah, I would consider myself to be an activist since the birth of my first kid, which was 18 years ago.
Right on.
Started blogging probably about 13 or 14 years ago.
Yeah, I only saw your blog recently.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, you know how the internet works, right? It's a weird place. People have their followings in different areas of the internet.
Oh yeah, definitely. I understand that. Like if you look at the difference in my blog with like 55,000 and you look at my YouTube with 2,500 or 600 or whatever, there's a big difference.
Right. And when you blog, there's, especially the kind of blogging that I do, humor blogging, millions of people have read my material.
Right.
But nobody knows me.
Well, yeah, I wasn't doing much on my YouTube channel. I mean, I was doing some stuff, but I didn't know how to edit videos, so I really was focusing more on my blogs since
Oh, yeah. Yeah, me too, to tell you the truth. I found that writing was a lot easier for me to do. It was a good entryway. And now that the video editing technology is so simple.
Yeah, really.
Damien Marie AtHope, he is, I'm going to try to get this all in one take, an axiological atheist, anti-theist, anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with a schooling in psychology and sociology, as well as an autodidact in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. Damien promotes science, realism, axiology, liberty, justice, ethics, anarchism, socialism, progressivism, liberalism, philosophy, psychology, archaeology, and anthropology, advocating for sexual, gender, child, secular, LGBTQIA+, race, class rights, and equality.
That sounds great. That sums me up. That's one person said to me, "Why is there so much?" And I go like, "Well, that's pretty much sums me up. I'm a lot. I have a lot of areas where I really go deep into, where most people, don't do that. I really like things. I'm the kind of person though that you understand. I don't play video games ever. I don't read books of fiction ever. So I mean, I spend all my time basically on nonfiction and learning. I mean, that's."
A cursory look at your blog shows a wide variety of topics that you're interested in. Anything from the history of Antifa,
right,
to the evolution of religion, a whole swath, a breadth of topics, and in-depth blog posts too.
Yeah.
There are chunks, big meaty chunks of information there.
Oh, definitely, and I like to also put sources and stuff in direct links, so people don't have to go get since the reference part and just go and find it. I try to put links right to what I'm got the info from, because
right.
I really don't like people. I'm a rationalist. I like people to have beliefs built on justification, like reason or logic or stuff like evidence and science. So both sides. I like reason and evidence. I think those are the ways that we justify knowing things. And so I want people to be informed, not just put out nonsense. Like there's essentially talking about prehistory. There's definitely some people on the internet that just spout absolute rubbish, and so I decided that I wanted to start my own show, The History Voyagers, because I wanted to basically get better information out. Like I have 10-part series I'm doing on Göbekli Tepe, and Göbekli Tepe is a 12,000-year-old temple in southeastern Turkey. Probably in the sense kind of like the oldest temple sort of in the world. I see it as the emergence out of me personally, my speculations. I see in a sense shamanism at that point because of agriculture and asceticism, where all of a sudden you go from hunter-gatherer, nomads in a sense, to now you're staying in one place, and that creates, because just right before Göbekli Tepe, there's already these kind of proto-cities sort of, where they're still hunter-gatherers, but they kind of also have towns. Kind of probably people today, where someone can in a sense own a house, but say work, overseas, or works, not always. So.
Right. It sounds like it's right around the cusp of the agricultural revolution.
Yeah, it's right around the agricultural revolution, which I think to me not only spread the genes of the farmers, and not only the tools and the philosophy of our culture and horticulture, and animal husbandry, but also to me the religion in a sense package that kind of went with that. So you can see
I
that.
don't want to bury the lead here because not only are you a blogger, but you do have a YouTube channel by the same name, Damien.
Yeah, Damien Marie AtHope, yeah.
That people can easily find, just a cursory look on YouTube.
Yeah, and so I also have my blog, which is under my instance, or my website is under my name too, Damien Marie AtHope, and I also, have, in a sense, even my email is Damien Marie AtHope, just dots, a period in between. I wanted it to be simple, but I also felt it was important to use my name. One thing is because to me, like you talked about a little bit before we started about being an activist, I'm an activist in a sense ever since I became an atheist. It was like almost the same time I became an anarchist. I used to be a Republican and a conservative, and I started realizing that, especially when I became an atheist, it really became present to me because no one's going to save us. Right, and we're finite, fragile bodies alone in the world. Our best, efforts are not solitary in a sense. They're unitive. They're, working with people. So I realized that has to be the mode for, survival and human flourishing. And so that. But
no, I feel the same way. When I became an atheist activist, I felt the burden of now. Of really having to be out there and giving comfort and spreading information and in my case at least laughter.
Yeah, I would say that's the one thing I probably don't do that well, though I do try to joke around, but I think I'm kind of a serious person, and so it's fine. It's just like what I do for fun would be to some people boring. I like to watch stuff on archaeology and in history and stuff on philosophy. Not because in a sense I'm not like nerdish. It's just that I like scholarly stuff. I like deep thinking. I'm a thinker, and so I like to really like morality. I remember that's where, like in college, that was a real big deal to me because I had been a Christian, so I thought that a certain kind of morality. Then they get to the class, and for my one class I did in school for ethics, which to me was a joke because it actually focused more about just don't get caught, sort of. I was like, is that because she said, don't be filmed and stuff because then you can be held accountable, or whatever, taken to court. And I was like, shouldn't you just do the right thing? So if you got filmed, it wouldn't matter. I mean, am I missing something?
That was a very, I have found that because I've taken a couple of philosophy classes when I was an undergraduate too, that it's difficult to get through any one of those classes without coming up with one story like that or some kind of weird situation, because people just start talking about what they really think. And once people start talking about what they really think, a lot of craziness can happen.
Oh, I agree. And that's why, to me, I realized that, like some atheists will say in the atheist community, which I think they're wrong philosophically and just in general, when they say that they don't have any beliefs, say, I don't have any beliefs, which to me is a belief that you don't have beliefs. And what I realize that animals have beliefs. I mean, they think that you're going to do something when you open a can of food or something. So I don't think the beliefs is the problem. It's a natural, automatic thing. It's acceptance. What I started realizing is just the quality of the belief. It's the justification for the belief. It's the what that belief produces.
So, right, because not all beliefs are the same.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so some beliefs too, it's kind of trivial if we believe them or don't believe them. It has in a sense no or little to no impact if we, like if I said I have a cat, I have two cats. You believing that for the rest of your life, absolutely, if I did or did not, would make no difference at all.
Right.
So like you said, I mean, it's the richness of understanding what's before us that some things, like what Carl Sagan said about that when you have your propositions or your claims are extraordinary, you need to have some extraordinary evidence to, in a sense, support why that is, something we should be taking as a possibility even. So, definitely. So what I did is I made, in a sense, for myself, like a standard, a methodology. So it's like people say I do critical thinking, but I wanted something more concrete both for myself and for people that really don't get into philosophy, something easier. So to me, I call it belief etiquette. We should have reasoned belief acquisitions. It means whatever we let come in, we're acquiring the beliefs, we should try to make them reasoned. Rethink on everything that comes in, like a filter. But we suck. I realize this. I learned psychology. Believe me, we are prone to bias and prone to emotionalism. In fact, to me, a lot of people don't realize, like I was talking to my one philosopher friend about phenomenology, I don't mean it in a magical, mystical way or anything, but phenomenology is basically how we experience the world emotionally almost. So like when you look at a picture of, let's say, a meadow, or it's even could have a window frame to the picture, it makes us feel like we're actually seeing outside. We're not in any way, but our reaction to what our mind is thinking it sees, which is our phenomenology, our experience, becomes different of looking at this picture. We feel free and open. Like looking in the mirror, we feel, the room's bigger or something. It's just tricking our mind in a sense. But I know that's because our mind is really easy to trick.
It is. As Michael Shermer said, we have bad brains.
Yeah. So to me, it's understanding that it's important, because
I totally agree with you on that. Understanding how the brains are bad, the specific ways, because that can help get you some kind of insurance policy or some kind of protection against the way the brain can be bad consistently.
Right, well, it's an awareness, because what happens to me too is we have this defense mechanism socially as much as it is interpersonally, that we don't like to fail, we don't like to be wrong. So, but the problem is we're not that great of thinkers, so we err often, and yet we don't want to admit that we erred. Thus we stay in the error or continue to repeat the error, or periodically are in a sense harmed by the error. And so yes, I think that it's very important to be aware and diligent. That's why to me also there should be good belief maintenance. That means a reassessment of everything I believe. Everything I believe already right now is on the table. I'm willing to reassess it. I'm willing to relook at it. And I think that's important, because just because we once believed something and even thought that we had reason, that doesn't mean we still do. Even science. Imagine if science never updated. Never got important, because I realized sometimes it's just getting a greater accuracy. It's not that it's wrong. It's
as we talk about this, there's a lot of advice embedded in what you're talking about right now. I think this is a good place to kind of shift gears and talk about the best advice you ever heard.
I would say probably I'd say is my wife telling me to pay attention to people talking into details. I'm a big picture thinker. My mind goes really fast, and I read people as much as probably I almost talk to them. I like analyzing them. That's why I was doing good at psychology, because analyzing people is pretty natural to me. In fact, when I was a religious person, I actually thought I had some special, what do you call that? Median or something or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever. I don't know exactly, but because I wasn't going to look into it, but I felt like I had, because I seemed like I could almost look at someone and how they're hold their face or tilt or whatever, their eyes, not 100%, I'm not saying like magic, but I felt like I was really able to do that, and to read people and feel them when they talk, what words they use, just paying attention, which, like I said, really helped in counseling.
Oh yeah.
But also it really helps to me, remembering that that's not the only thing that's important, because I was paying, let's just say, my wife would say I would talk to someone, I would forget their name.
Yeah.
Because I'm too busy watching their eyes, looking at things, hearing the inflections, and I'm paying attention to all this, in a sense, minutia stuff, trying to figure out what's going on behind what you're saying. Because a lot of times when you're offered things, lies, or not lies, but it could be half-truths, mistruths, confusions, or whatever. People offer things, but it's like, I know that I try not to, or be careful about generalizations, because generalizations is something we do because we like cliff notes. We're lazy.
What you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, is try to be aware of the different levels of the conversation that you're having at any one time.
Yeah.
So it isn't just what you're naturally good at.
Correct. It's listening.
Because every conversation has different levels to it, doesn't it? Right? It's
yes.
your body language,
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, in some way, you're trying to glean what's in the other what's going on behind the eyes, right?
Right, which is what I would always do, paying too much attention to that's which is important. I mean, it helps. But if you don't pay attention to what words people say, two things. One, you're wrong, because you'll say things that aren't right, so you can't ever win an argument or a discussion, in a sense, if you're constantly wrong, because the person will just blow it off. What are you talking about? The other thing to me is we're strawmanning them. We're building and destroying something that has nothing. It's like this one guy told me, you can't be an anti-theist and also support science. And I'm like, you could be in anything, from a religionist to mystic to an atheist. We could all support science. I don't even understand. So, and he's like, well, because you don't start with reality. And I'm like, it was this weird. Anyways, he was wrong. I kept telling him you're using all kinds of logical fallacies, no. And I go, plus, anyways, that's not the definition. You want to create a definition that no one else, not just me, they even look at the internet. No one agrees with that thing of what anti-theism means. And yet you want to then hold me accountable for what your interpretation is.
Yeah. So have you developed any tricks or strategies to help you achieve this particular goal?
Well, yes. So the one thing is having the standard with the three things, right? Belief etiquette. Realizing that every belief has to be put in this cauldron of test. So it has to be test when it comes in. Then I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna believe things I shouldn't have. Could be from bad evidence. Could be just misunderstanding or whatever. So then I need to check in on my beliefs. Belief maintenance. I recheck. I'm open to when I'm challenged. Yeah, maybe I should recheck. What do I have? Why am I believing this? Then the other thing is, to me, honest belief relinquishment. It's one of the hardest things when you realize, it may not be totally accurate what I thought. So now I need to let that go. Or update how, in the sense, I talk about it or whatever. And so, just like recently, I started emphasizing more of the word speculation. I talk about archaeology stuff. It wasn't like before I was trying to, dupe somebody or not explain it. I would always say, to me. I didn't know the word correct. I would say, to me, I believe this, which is true. It's my speculation. But I like the word speculation, too, because I heard an archaeologist talk about it in a video, and I go, that's the word I want to say. Because I think it transmits the idea a lot faster. Because though I do think the stuff, I do have some support for my thinking, that is not the same thing as saying 100% I know. Like some people do when they go, I know that the aliens built the pyramids. You don't know that.
Right, yeah, you don't know that. You don't know that at all. Yeah. So if your wife was here, how would she gauge your ability to take in what this kind of advice that she gave you?
She would say I was slow. It took a long time because some of I'm kind of arrogant. I'm humble in the fact that I'm willing to learn from people, but I'm also kind of arrogant. It's my nature. I mean, I'm kind of mild sociopath, sort of. I mean, not real bad, but I'm just saying, I had child abuse. It's from extreme child abuse. It's not from. It was probably some genetic too. My family is a little bit out there, but I had my tailbone broken by my dad hitting me with a 2x4. Because religion, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing me a favor, supposedly. But
I got a fair amount of the belt back in the day.
But yeah, I'm totally against that. I think that if you result to hitting as an option, then you need to go learn more, because that's not really an option. I think it's weird too how if we hit our spouse, that's abuse, but hit our child, and it's punishment. Like what? No.
There's this real toxic idea, and it's embedded in our language too, is that when I refer to my child, I refer to them as my child.
Yes, correct. Child. Yes, correct.
I
ownership,
own them like a can of Coke. I do not own them. I am someone responsible for their rights up to a certain point. I'm like a regent in some way, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I find that really, even when we were talking earlier and I refer to my child as my child, there's part of me that just grates in the back of my head. And I don't know what the solution is to that. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, to me, I see it as like two pyramids, right? They're on their side. When a child starts, they have none and the parent has all. But as they get older, in a sense, the parent is getting less and the child is getting more. It becomes the opposite until they get full rights and the parent goes back down to zero, like when the kid, in a sense, started. So almost no. But I think that it's a good point, though. Just like to me, one of the things people always go, "What do you hope to the most?" Well, the biggest hope I have really is that humanism is flourishing. Not just atheism, because atheism to me just says that we're not using fantasy as our starting point, in a sense, for me. But humanism is saying we're gonna do something about what's going on. Because I could see it and just not care, or see it and feel like I'm not having a responsibility. I don't feel that. I feel the opposite. I feel like my entire life is a responsibility. I see the person as political, that everything I do, in a sense, it has, in a sense, political, because it's about freedom and rights, like you were talking about, right, for the children. And I don't understand why people that are religious they want religious freedom, only though for themselves. They do not want that for their child. They don't. And I think it's weird how we somehow give religious freedom when you're 18, like some or whatever. Like once you, in a sense, leave your home, you're allowed to have this self-freedom, because the rest of the whole time of your life is in America. That would be kind of not the case. Whatever your parents believe, you must believe, in a sense, or in a sense, semi-obligated to believe.
Yeah, good advice overall.
And so one of the things too that, like you were talking about people and rights, that's something like people ask, like, how can you be kind in a sense towards religious people? One is compassion. I was 35 before I became an atheist, so I'm no one to talk and look at someone else and call them a fool, to their face when I was the fool. I mean, if we're going to point fingers.
I totally understand. Speaking as someone who was brought up as a Baptist, not a Southern Baptist, but a Baptist, I had all these crazy ideas too. And it took time to get rid of them all.
Right. So to me, I wanted to have a standard of how, because I'm a value theorist and axiology is value theory, and I wanted to look at how do I assess people? What category in a sense do I put people in? To me, people are dignity beings. In a sense, when we say you have rights, we are acknowledging you have a dignity that we, in a sense, have an obligation to kind of preserve. Because when you, in a sense, violate people, you violate their dignity, their sense of self, their sense of safety, their sense of comfort, their sense of, ownership of themselves. And so to me, that's one of the things that I really think is important as an anarchist and just in general, is the self-ownership. I believe that this amazing thing that people own themselves, not governments, not anything. We are our own. I don't think that removes us, just like atheism, realizing that no God didn't somehow remove morality, actually added morality.
It informs morality.
Right, exactly.
It informs it.
Has your atheism progressed since reading the Bible? Or?
I think I now I'm a little bit more political about it. I do believe people should be able to believe in what they would like. But I also think that religion should kind of stay private. It should stay out of the public sphere. So, a little bit, I've increased my political aspect of it. But overall, I don't believe world religions, but I do think they're interesting to study.
Right, and studying world religions is kind of what you do as, or is going to be your job?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So, and what about them do you want to study? But make sure you kind of say the questions I'm saying.
What I do enjoy studying about religion, gender and sexuality. Also, I like studying the origin of religions, what influenced, certain religions, how they came to be, how they function in society. That kind of stuff really fascinates me.
Yeah, I have that same fascination. That actually relates to my book. And I basically start a religion at 100,000 years. But I think that even further back, possibly, 1.5 million years, people were starting to do ritualistic behaviors, it seems like, with stone tool working, becoming, So can you talk a little bit about stuff like that? Do you know? I'm sure you probably do.
I don't go that far back. I generally study Near Eastern religions from about the Neolithic. But I do look at the Paleolithic.
Can you tell us the time frames for people that may not know those words?
Sure. The Neolithic is about 10,000 years ago. It's essentially the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to more sedentary lifestyles. And then up to the Chalcolithic and then the Bronze Age, where we get the first state-level societies. That's kind of as far back as I go. I usually don't research further back than that.
Okay. So, has your research that you've done impacted your atheism at all?
Yeah. Essentially, the more I learn about religion, the more I understand it as a human phenomenon. I certainly don't believe in any revealed religions. And the more you look at religion, the more you see how it functions in society and how people use it. Not just for bad things. Atheists like focusing on the bad things, but also on the constructive things. You kind of see people are pretty creative when it comes to this kind of stuff.
What do you think are a few bad things, and what do you think are a few constructive things about religion?
The bad things is how it manipulates people politically. I think that the largest evil that religion has done has been to women. Gender and sexuality definitely are impacted negatively by religion. And some religions are better than others. And when you look at the old Mesopotamian religions, it seems they were a little more forgiving to women than in the late Bronze Age and then in the early Iron Age.
So, and what do you think are some good characteristics of religion, since you brought it up?
I think it unifies people towards purposes, which sometimes can be a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of a canvas for both the positive and the negative. It's kind of I don't know.
So
it's a good question. I mean,
because to me, whenever someone says it's positive, even like you said, the trait of unifying, I agree, it unifies, and often it unifies towards the process of being against people. It unifies a small group against another group, or it unifies a large group against a small group. I don't really see, I know that it does have that tendency, but the tendency is to actually be tribalized to me.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the dynamics I've been noticing is, in order to unify people, you have to other people. And a lot of times creating the identity for yourself means in juxtaposition to your enemy. And you kind of see that with Judaism. It unified a small group of Canaanites in an imperially dominated society. You had Egyptians, you had Assyrians, you had all these people who were, just wreaking havoc. And you had this small group of people that were able to unify on it. But because of that, they also were very polemic against the Assyrians. They were very polemic against other people's views of religion, even within their own community. So that's definitely one of the negative things that is part of the unifying factor, is also part of the othering factor, which creates a lot of violence. Not just physical violence, but emotional violence, psychological violence.
And don't you think it also has a characteristic with intermarriage or even friend relationships? So in a sense, with the process you said is positive to unify, actually is the exact process to actually disconnect people.
But when you look at the ancient Mesopotamian religions, their religion unified them to dig irrigation trenches. It unified them to work together and to integrate society. It was getting a lot more complex than with the city-states, and so you kind of needed somebody in charge. And a lot of this came from, religious concepts that mirrored the human concepts. So it does unify people towards, projects and towards survival sometimes. But, especially in the 21st century, I think we've kind of outgrown the need for that, especially with globalization. We don't need to be tribal anymore. We're not dying for lack of water. We're not starving to death because we can't unify. It's actually the opposite. We're killing each other because we're too tribal. We're not accepting other people. We're not branching out. And so I think the usefulness that it has had no longer, is applicable today. I think it's opposite now. It's unifying people towards violence. Sunnis versus Shiites, Protestants versus Catholics in Europe during the 30 Years' War, stuff like that. So, it can be useful to unify people, but I think it's more useful to manipulate people.
So when you're doing your religious studies, do you think that atheist puts a lens on how you see their religions, or you...
I think everybody's biased. Part of the methodology behind any academic process is understanding your own bias and trying to manage it. Trying to manage the bias of ancient historians. Everybody's biased to some degree, but you try to manage that and mitigate that with different techniques, different approaches, different methods. I think in general, in secular religious studies, most people approach religion as a man-made human phenomenon, an anthropological kind of approach or sociological approach, or even social psychology. So it's already in academia, people are approaching that with that kind of lens. I try not to be hostile to religion when I'm studying it. I have personal feelings about religion, especially what it does today to women, to minorities, to a lot of people. What it does to politics, what it does to, it retards science, it rejects climate change for religious reasons. So, I try to keep my personal views of modern religion out of studying ancient religions. And I try to stick to, sound theories and methods, but to say that bias isn't in anybody's research, it's impossible to hedge it out completely. But I try to give, ancient religions a fair shot. I try to explain them from a human perspective, not, from a supernatural perspective. I try to understand them as any other aspect of culture. good or
So would it be wrong to you if you had a negative view of religion as an atheist? Or would you see that as a hindrance in being unbiased? What I'm saying is, like scientists, and I believe in evolution, and someone says that creationism or flat earth society, is viable, is my complete rejection and disdain for them, do you think that's a negative, or is that just being true to the facts? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, well, for instance, I have professors who are deeply Christian, and I have professors who are Jewish, Muslim, and they study it from the same perspective and the same methods I do. In that way, there is a unity where academic religious studies, they hedge out the religious bias by methods. They also hedge out the atheist bias through methods. But, to say that you're completely hedging them out is not true. But, a lot of the stuff that the field has been built on has actually been built on by the work of people who are deeply religious. They believe, sometimes things that today in the 21st century, we would consider absurd. But their work was still founded in very solid methodology. And because of that, the advances in religious studies, they come from secular people and they come from religious people. So I don't want to discount the bias of religious people in the field, because I think they work beyond that. I really do. And the problem I have is understanding how they compartmentalize that, how they can study religion as a human phenomenon, but then go home and go to church on Sunday knowing what they know. That's the problem I kind of have.
Do you think that possibly they do it because they believe that all the other religions are human phenomenon, just not the one they chose?
No, some of them are pretty even-handed. Some of them are very critical of their own religion. The interesting thing I notice is that most of them, I think it has made them more liberal in their politics. Understanding that, maybe there are problems with their Bible versus maybe Hindu texts. It kind of gives them a little bit more of a live and let live mentality. Too familiar with people who go to seminaries, so it might be different. Especially when you deal with evangelical, Baptist, conservative kind of seminaries. But for the most part, the people I've encountered, even though they're religious, the things that they've studied have made them very liberal as far as their politics.
I read one book by a guy who started out Jewish, and then after doing archaeology, he became a secular humanist, still practicing Jew, but only as a matter of culture, not actual belief. So do you think that could be the case with people in the field? They may start out more religious?
Yeah, that's definitely, when you look at the history of biblical archaeology, a lot of these guys really believed that what the Bible said was true, and so they kind of went out into the field to try to prove the Bible. Even up until the 1990s, archaeologists kind of considered the Bible to be somewhat accurate as far as people and places and times. But since the 1970s, a lot of these archaeologists have been, just from the evidence that they've been digging up, they realize that you can't treat the Bible as a historical document. It might be still a starting point for many of them, but a lot of them actually have realized that you can't use it that way. I think most people start off as religious. They come into this field because they feel a kinship with their religion. But I think as they go through and they start learning the facts and they start seeing some of the evidence, they just can't. But it seems to me, instead of becoming atheists, they mitigate their faith. They find ways to maintain faith and still believe, even though they're looking at some things that are very problematic for their belief systems.
Since you brought up things that are problematic, can you list a few for people that may not know?
There are very few scholars out there who actually believe the Exodus happened. This surprised. I was talking to a Jewish guy last week, and it completely surprised him. He said he was talking to a liberal rabbi who said that he still believed the Exodus happened. But the consensus in the field is that it did not happen. People were surprised to hear that. When you look at the archaeology at the turn of the late Bronze Age into the early Iron Age, there's no transition, there's no mass influx of a new culture. They have the same pottery, the same house layouts. And so what the field has come up with is called the emergent model. Essentially, the Israelites were Canaanites who eventually, gradually developed their own distinct culture, but they were Canaanites. And, this is confirmed by all sorts of archaeology, and that surprises people too. The thing is, most biblical archaeologists are actually Jewish, and a lot of them are secular, most of them are secular. And so this isn't news to them. It's not news to most scholars in the field, even if they're rabbis or priests, but it's news to the public. And to me, that's a problem I have too. Some of these guys go to seminary, And I definitely understand student loans. I understand debt. But when they leave seminary, they know that everything they've learned, all the facts that they've looked at, are very contradictory. And they decide to pay off their student loans by continuing to be priests and rabbis and not informing the public of these common facts that everybody in the field knows. That kind of bothers me. I mean, I do believe people should have the freedom to believe whatever they like, but I mean, facts are facts, and I don't think you should hide those from people to make money to pay off your student loans. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
So you in a sense feel that by not intentionally not saying it, that they're like lying.
In a way, the Clergy Project, if you go to that website, it's filled with clergy members who have this exact what they learn in seminary schools, and these aren't secular colleges, these are religious theological seminaries that they go to. Even there, where they learn the facts, they were conflicted, they back out and start their ministries. The guys in the Clergy Project, men and women in the Clergy Project, they actually just couldn't live with themselves by, kind of like watering down what they learned. And so they had to leave, and they had to, be honest with themselves and with their congregations. And I think that's a big step. But, I mean, our culture is very anti-intellectual. They deny climate change, people constantly arguing about whatever authority. But when it comes to biblical scholars, when it comes to their own ministers, it's kind of like they shop for who they want to trust. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think they should be shopping for facts.
But do you think that some of them are afraid that if they get the truth, that they'll not be able to believe?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what I said about people mitigating their own beliefs as they learn the facts. They don't want to destroy their flock's beliefs. So however they've mitigated it, it may work for them, but they understand that a lot of these people can't read Hebrew, they can't read Greek. They don't understand anything about the manuscripts, especially the problems with the manuscripts. And so, they don't want to rock the boat. They view religion as good for these people, and so they don't want to destroy that for them. And so they've mitigated it their own way, and they figure, it's still good. I've actually read stories from the Clergy Project where people would change their ministry, where they weren't preaching it as fact. They weren't preaching it as, they were preaching the good stories. They were preaching a very liberal, pro-women, pro-minority, pro-gay people, and it got pushback. But that's how they justified it to them, was I can help people by modifying my ministry. And I still think there's problems.
Okay, so could you elaborate what problems you feel that is? I mean, I agree with it, but I'm probably more hardcore.
I don't know. It's, to me, like, especially when it comes to climate change.
Right, so let's just say they, like you said, that they're liberal and they believe in climate change, they believe in women's rights and gay rights. Where do you still see the issue? I mean, I do, but I could tell you, but I want to hear what you think.
What I personally think is people have the Bible now. I mean, when you go back to the Protestant Reformation, literacy was low. The printing press was just invented. People couldn't read the Bible, but today people can. And no matter how liberal their pastor is, they can still go home and read, scriptures that say that God will never let the planet be destroyed, or scriptures in Leviticus that say, gay people are an abomination. And so no matter what the pastor says, you still have these problematic ancient texts written from ancient cultures that people can still go back and they get legitimacy through people still believe, pastors still believing it, or claiming to believe it. And it legitimizes these texts that people can, you have one Bible and you have more than 41,000 different denominations. So that tells you how far you can interpret one book, to the hardcore fundamentalists, to the hardcore liberals, the same book, and you could get a million different things. So I think we should, in fact, be looking for objective truth, historical objective truth. And I know objective fact is kind of a problematic category, especially with postmodernist theory, how it's examined where we get our information, how it is politicized. But we should still be trying to look for objective facts. And I think that's kind of where religious studies should be going, not in trying to water something down. Some of the stuff is black and white. You can read the Bible and it says what it says. So I don't know. I think it legitimizes it in a way to try to continue to use it as a crutch to move it more liberally.
So my issue would be, no matter how liberal, even Unitarian Universalists, in a sense, I feel like religion is never something that a child should be forced into. That is one of my biggest things is, as you say, it cuts off intellectualism. I mean, no matter how nice you make it, you have to at some point say Santa Claus is real. In a sense, that God is Santa Claus. I mean, and you allow that to go into adulthood. So to me, and then also, just because there was another problem is when a child has the mind of wanting to do things as perfect as possible, and you could be liberal, but they have the book that's not liberal, and they may read the book and decide they're going to become a fundamentalist. And I think that giving them no one would, to me, in this day and age, would invent that book, the Bible, and hand it to children.
There's definitely some non-friendly, non-child-friendly stuff in there. Yeah. I think we should teach world religion like we teach culture. We should not teach it as fact. We should teach all of them as diverse human expressions, but not as fact. You know what I mean? Like, we should teach the history of India alongside religious Hinduism, how Buddhism came out of it, things like that. And I think teaching it as we would history or any other subject, if you expose children to a lot of this stuff as different cultures, I think they'll come to their own conclusion that this is all man-made stuff too. But definitely the childhood indoctrination, that kind of stuff is not. I mean, when you look at it, that's probably how most people come to their religion. It's the religion of their family. When you look at statistics, most people are the same religion as their parents. It's based on geography. If you're from Saudi Arabia, you're a Muslim. If you're from the Deep South, you're a Baptist. And that's just how it is. So it's obvious that it's not a choice. There's definitely childhood indoctrination going on there. And I think learning about world religions is important. I really do. I think it's part of our history, it's part of our shared culture, but I don't think we should be indoctrinating children into it. We should be teaching them just as we would teach them, history, world history. So I'm with you on that. I think it's incredibly important to stand up for the separation of church and state. I think it's very important to keep religion out of politics. You can look at Pakistan and see how religion, isn't a good thing to have in public political life. Like I said, people should be able to believe what they like, but it should be kept out of politics. Oh, that's interesting, that happened sometime in the past. And there are examples of past culture. There are examples of past religions that were set up, and I think that's kind of where I would like my work to go, is just to show analogies of where we can do positive things, where it's been done in the past. But at the same time, I do feel like, the separation of church and state is very important.
There's not enough, atheist anthropology, atheist archaeology, and I feel like that's a detriment to not just, as you say, religious studies, but I think atheist studies. I hear everyone saying we do science, or philosophy, and then most of the science ones are discounting the philosophy, and I hear the philosophers, trying to do science, but I don't really hear too much promotion of anthropology and archaeology, and that's why.
Most anthropologists are irreligious, agnostic or atheist. Most archaeologists are also not religious, and I think that comes through their approach to understanding things. They're very epistemologically driven to look at evidence and not going with preconceptions. The problem is they're not very politically motivated to speak out against religion. So there are a lot of non-believers in the field, but they don't want to rock the boat either. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. Some of them feel like, religion's good for some people, so don't bother with it. And they're definitely, people in academia are definitely a lot more liberal in their politics, but nobody seems to take a specific target to religion and use their work to kind of show some of the harms of religion and the necessity of the separation of church and state. So I think you're right there. I think a lot of these men and women aren't religious, and they're very liberal, but they don't specifically come out and condemn certain things.
A lot of times what religion makes it feel like is that you have to be quiet while they practice. You can't be an open atheist that supports atheism and your schooling. You get what I'm saying? That you as an atheist kind of needs to be quiet, even though but they can know and yet lie and go to church or whatever. So just wondering your stance on that, or now that I brought it up.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I definitely see there's a need for political activism. I also understand you don't want to, especially in academia, you don't want to be a dick. If you're a dick, people don't want to work with you. People don't want to read what your research is. They already assume that you have a bias. I'll give you an example. One of the archaeologists, William Dever, he's outright secularist. He outright says it. He says he doesn't believe. And some people don't respond well, and they don't want to read his research. And I think that's a problem, because his research is well-grounded and it's factual. And so when he comes up with archaeology that says, look, polytheism was the norm in Israel throughout the entire Iron Age, I think religious people need to hear that. And so turning them off to that message by, being arrogant or in their view, I don't view it that way at all. I view it as presenting the facts. But, offending religious sensibilities shuts them off to reading your research. And I think a lot of people are disconnected with Bart Ehrman now, because he's actually kind of been more political, more active in kind of expressing atheism and agnosticism. And that's kind of unfortunate to me, but he hasn't been doing anything offensive at all. He's been presenting the facts. So it's kind of one of these things where it's like you got to sugarcoat sometimes to get people to read what you're talking about. But at the same time, I think there should be a drive to kind of not placate people who don't want to hear the facts anyway. So I think it's tough. I want them to look at the research and realize the evidence that you're showing. But at the same time, you don't want to shut them off. So I understand that problem.
My book, I've had people that are religious say they want to read it because, not because I'm even-handed, because I admit upright, I'm extremely anti-religious. So, I don't even want to hear secular religion. If atheists all got together and want to start, chanting, I'm not down for that. I don't care if they say they don't have a belief. So, I'm extremely anti-religionist. But, as like you said, I try to kind of, in my book, present facts. I do somewhat, pile them against religion, obviously. But I do want to show the facts. So there's a credibility you gain from people who just want to hear the truth, and there's no other place out there. That's why I'm actually trying to even write the book. I had no training in anthropology, archaeology, even philosophy. Never. I had a psychology degree. But I saw the need. No one is talking about this. No one is presenting all this information, as you say, everyone knows, but no one knows. Everyone in academia in your field knows, but the standard people, even atheists, they're totally. Just like I know before you talked about the Zagorists, and I would like you to bring that up now, because again, I seen just the other day someone posted a thing again.
Yeah, that's another frustrating thing too, is fellow atheists keep posting this crap from Zeitgeist where it says, Jesus was plagiarized from Horace and Osiris and all this stuff, and that's actually not factually correct, and that bugs me just as much as religious people not knowing the facts behind the Exodus, not having a reason that it was written, stuff like that. So there definitely is a need for people to kind of set the record straight. I think it's hard to be. You gotta be careful when you're trying to. I don't know. It's just a tricky thing, because you don't want to offend people. You don't want to turn people off. You want them to look at what you found. So I think a lot of people in academia are actually too afraid to kind of step out and say, look, this is what's going on. And I think another thing too, in academia, they're talking to themselves. They're really talking to their peers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of the stuff needs to get out to the public, more and more. So I'm with you on that. But to me, like I said, I don't want to not rock the boat, because I think there are political implications. But I'm just finding my way right now. I'm still not sure how I'm going to approach the whole process. I agree. As an atheist, we need more people like that. And I actually am very interested in kind of doing that. I just need to be careful how I do that. As far as using like a ghostwriter, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you don't have a PhD, they don't take you seriously. So if you write as somebody else, they want to know your credentials. But then it's such an anti-intellectual environment anyway, where religious people, they're more offended that you have credentials, that you went to, a quote-unquote secular school. Even if you went to a seminary like Bart Ehrman did, they kind of view that bad. They kind of revel in not intellectual, they condemn academia and all that stuff. So it's a double-edged sword, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm still just struggling. I'm working on 2 masters at the same time, so most days I'm having nightmares. I'm getting no sleep. but I definitely do feel like, there is the need for, like David McAfee, he got his undergrad degree in religious studies. I think he could actually do more by talking more about religion and talking more about how he was trained. I think he's a good spokesperson for atheism, for skepticism, especially for, how do we know what we know? But I think he could kind of aim his spotlight a little bit more on religion. And it's kind of hypocritical for me to say that because that's what I should be doing too, So I'm just trying to navigate my way to get a job, to pay off my student loans first, before I can consider how I can use that word, not just in academic circles, but also politically, how I can use that, So I'm definitely with you on that. I think I just haven't thought about it yet. I'm conflicted on,
So, but you agree that, like, what I'm saying, we need you. We need you as an out atheist telling us about religion and correcting. I mean, if we're supposed to be about the truth, and we call them, telling lies. I mean, telling our own lies is not beneficial either. So, and
I'm with you. See, I'm out to the Department of Religious Studies, Anthropology department. They don't really seem to care. I mean, most of them aren't believers anyway. But the first semester I was in the grad program, I was out as an undergrad. The first semester in, I told everybody right off the bat I'm an atheist. I'm not really, and most people in the field aren't dishonest either. I think, like I mentioned, most archaeologists, Israeli archaeologists, are actually secular. They are very upset at what the Israeli government's doing with Palestinians, and the evidence that they're finding is constantly overturning the fact that Israel never essentially was, this kind of promised land. So there are people out there who are outspoken secularists, and there are people out there who are political about it. But I think there is a need in atheism as a movement to have people focus the spotlight on religion, what I know, and disseminate that in a way that for people who are just interested in ancient history, or for people who are. But I definitely think there's a need for people in religious studies to kind of focus the light on religion. I think, like, when you look at slavery and a lot of the things that the Bible condoned, you kind of see that morality is more shaped by culture than by religion. There were people using scriptures to prove that slavery was okay during slavery. There were abolitionists that, were using scriptures to show that slavery was not okay. And so I think, when people say you need religion to have morality, I don't buy that. And I think it's based more on culture. And when you look at culture today, there are a lot more acceptance for LGBT community. There's a lot more openness. And I think the church doesn't lead in morality. I think they follow culture. They're reaching out to the LGBT community, but it's a little too late. There's been a lot of bad stuff that's been going on and justified by religion, and there's a lot of stuff in there that you can't, it would take too much to explain away. You'd have to say, well, this, scripture in Leviticus didn't mean this, or we don't have to follow anymore. And people could still go right back to it and say, this is what God said. So I think it's an impediment to morality and the advancement of inclusiveness. They're just kind of trailing on at the end now, after the fact, as they did with the civil rights movement.
The Israelites, do you know of any homosexuality that happened during those times that they don't talk about?
Well, this is a thing, again, with the Bible, a lecture on the homosexuality of King David and Saul's son Jonathan. And there's a lot of textual stuff in there where you could kind of get that implication. But for the most part, they're very condemning of homosexuality. There's no outright mentioning of it. But when you look at most cultures, when you look at most species, homosexuality is a biological fact. So, I'm sure there were same-sex behavior in ancient Israel. I'm sure there was same-sex, there's evidence of same-sex behavior in the early Bronze Age in Mesopotamia. So, I'm sure the stuff was going on. It's just the guys who wrote the Bible were very against it.
Yeah, and do you think that it could have a lot to do with the procreation? Because I know there's like condemning the death of the person that spills the seed on the ground, and so it was because he didn't impregnate or try to impregnate. So do you think it could have to do that homosexuality is a non-childbearing thing more than being about the sex act? I'm just wondering.
I think definitely there's a power component there, but when you talked about that passage is actually about Tamar and Onan. That whole story is kind of funky anyway, but I think that story kind of, when you think about the morality behind that, Judah ends up having to come in to being suckered into knocking up his daughter-in-law Tamar because she didn't get a child through either of his sons, and so she pretends to be a prostitute. And then, somebody says, hey, by the way, your daughter-in-law was a prostitute. He said, okay, let's burn her alive. That's the first thing he comes out with. Come to find out, like, she tricked him. She's wearing a veil, all this stuff, and he has to backpedal. But it's like, that whole story, I don't think the whole point of it was you needed kids back then. Otherwise, you would die. You needed kids to work the fields. It was subsistence farming. I think it was more about, this lady got jacked and the moral of the story is whatever. But I definitely think there's a component there where it's a power component. I mean, in modern society, there's a lot of white, hetero, male privilege. And anything that threatens that, gays in the military, women in the military, I think it freaks people out, and they feel, even if they don't realize it, that they feel like they're about to lose some sort of privilege, and that, may have definitely been going on too. But the people who wrote the Bible, literacy was so small back then. It was the top 1% of the population in cities, in an agrarian society where most people were illiterate. 99% of the population lived out in farms, out in the sticks. So the guys who wrote the Bible, they were disconnected from the average Israelite person. So, what they have to say definitely about power. They wanted people to come and worship at Jerusalem, not at rural, high places. They definitely wanted people to come in and bring the money in and all that stuff. So I definitely think there's a power component. But it'd be difficult to say exactly what's going on because we only have their side of the story. And they're 1% of the population. So I'm not sure I'd venture that they needed more bodies in the pews because I don't think most people were showing up to Jerusalem. I think most people were doing religion at home. Family shrines are all over Iron Age Israel. Family altars were all over Iron Age Israel, high places. So I think people, were doing something completely different than what the guys who wrote the Bible were saying. So it's hard to say why they were so against it.
So you're speaking of high places, and isn't there a lot of mention about God being on a mountain or God's connected to mountains? And can you explain that? Because I understand a lot of it, but I've read a lot. So I'd like to hear you explain that about religion in general, not just the Canaanite or Israelite.
Yeah, Elliot Day went on about that, and I'm not really a fan of his work. He was very sympathetic to religion. He was almost a world religion apologist, and he talked a lot about that. I wouldn't say it's universal. When it comes to the Near East, Canaanites, Baal, I forget the name of the mountain that he was supposed to live on. A lot of that imagery was actually borrowed from the Canaanite religion into Judaism. So yeah, God on Mount Zion or Baal on, I think it's Mount Safan. They borrowed a lot of that imagery, and some of those gods, were considered to live on mountains. But I wouldn't go as far as to say it was a universal trait of religion. But yeah, it was definitely borrowed from the Canaanites and Judaism.
And then, even like the mountain in the supposed Exodus is sounds a lot like a volcano god. Do you know about that or agree with that, or you don't?
For a long time in anthropology and religious studies, there was this universalistic kind of, especially with guys like James Fraser, where it was all religions have these kind of things, or there's these universal claims that all religions have. Like, there's always gods on mountains. There's always, so when you look at how many volcanoes there are compared to how many religions have, mountain gods or whatever, volcanic imagery, the volcano god thing, that's something I'm not very familiar with. But again, not all gods were on mountains. Actually, and this is another thing that's similar to Mesopotamian religion, is the concept that there was fresh water and salt water, and that the gods, El, the Canaanite god, sat on both of those waters. That was a shared trait between Mesopotamia and Canaan, and then that kind of made its way in vague ways into Judaism. But there's no universal, kind of thing there. And so the volcano god thing, I haven't really heard a whole bunch about that, but it kind of sounds like one of those old school kind of theories.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying there's a universal thing, but yeah, if you read the verses like verbatim and you picture a volcano, I can send you a thing. Picture a volcano. I'm telling you, man, it a pillar by day and fire by night. The fact when they try to give burnt offerings, the fact they could give a burnt offering because something was burning already, and then like 140 people died because they're too close to God's power. Sounds a lot like they're too close to the volcano. That I just it's some of the stuff. I'm not saying that it has to be, but it sure sounds like just anthropomorphizing nature to me.
Yeah, the volcano aspect I don't really see in the Israelite religion, but definitely the anthropomorphizing nature. The early Canaanite god Baal, he was a storm god, and he rode on the clouds. And a lot of that imagery was brought into Psalms and the book of Daniel, where Yahweh is riding on clouds. And he's a storm god essentially. And there's definitely a lot of that going on, that anthropomorphizing nature. But I think with the Israelite movement, it was more and more politicized to try to subsume nature under this one god. I think there are political reasons for that with the monarchy, but it's like, for the most part, yeah, people didn't. That's the one thing I kind of will give to James Frazier is ancient people aren't as stupid as we think. They were trying to understand how nature worked, and a lot of times they came up with really, valid uses for plants, medicinal uses, things like that. But some of the stuff they came up with was a little crazy, and they were trying to understand this stuff, and the only way they could relate to it was through human terms. And I think that's a major component of a lot of our religion. It's kind of like a primitive version of science, cause and effect. They're trying to understand the cause and effect. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you look at like a lot of the trade books from guys in the field, whether it's archaeologists like, Finkelstein. I think he's probably pissed off a lot of religious people, especially in Israel. But I mean, I think they're doing kind of the work. They're just not targeting the atheist community. They're targeting popular readers. And the trade books like that are very, Bart Ehrman, he does a lot of academic stuff, but then he also writes books for the public. And so you see a lot of these guys using their work and just kind of putting it out there for people who are interested. That's not how you catch a fish, I don't think you just kind of leave the bait there. I think you got to target it a little bit better. And I think preaching to the choir is something I kind of don't want to do. Atheists don't believe, and there are atheists who are not very well versed in the Bible, very rare, but most of them are. But there are atheists who don't really know a lot about religion, but they know enough to know that it doesn't jive. They know it's kind of bullshit. So it's like, I don't want to sell books to them. They already know, they're already hip to that. But I would like religious people, to really kind of look at the facts. And I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing. I think it's, like, when I realized that I didn't believe anymore, the next question was, where did this come from? If people wrote this, where did it come from? That's fascinating in itself, history is fascinating. And so I think I would like to do that, but at the same time, I don't think there are enough people, like Hitchens would go and debate, rabbis and stuff. I'm not really a debate kind of guy, but I think we do kind of need to target the religious audience a little bit more, especially the more fundamentalists, the rabid political ones, and kind of say, hey, kick back, take a look at the facts and relax. But I don't think they're going to read it anyway, so I know it's pessimistic. But it's like I'm either preaching to the choir or, I'm preaching to the deaf. So it's kind of like I need to kind of figure out my place and figure out how I'm going to use what I got to help out, No, I think I understand what you're saying, because the more that information gets out there, the more people have access to it. So even if you are preaching to the choir, a lot of these, but that's the thing, especially in the digital age, you see this zeitgeist crap coming back over and over again on every atheist website, and I don't know, I'd given up. Every time I saw it, I used to debunk it. I used to say, hey guys, this is false, and I would get met with just as equal pushback as open-mindedness. Fellow atheist, even though it's been debunked a million times. So it's kind of one of those things where there's a ready stream of information. Whatever you want to believe is out there on the internet now. But at the same time, it is disseminating facts. Drop in the ocean. Are people going to shop for whatever information they want rather than dealing with the facts? So I'm conflicted about a lot of stuff, but it's like I'm just trying to keep my head up and keep my grades up and just make it first, and then from there, see how I can use my research. I'm not really a fan of the big four, but Sam Harris essentially said we can't get rid of religion. So what he aims to do is make it as socially unacceptable as slavery. I'm just as cynical as he is. I really don't think we're going to be able to get rid of religion. And even if we did, I mean, people will find other reasons to kill each other over. But I think religion is playing a very negative role in society. How to approach that problem is religion's going to be here. These people aren't going to let it go. It's part of their identity. They're too afraid to let it go, whatever. And so his attitude is the tactic should be cherry pick the good stuff. My feeling has been discredit, not because it should be discredited because I disagree with it, but because the facts led me to say this, I can't believe this. But that doesn't necessarily make people better either. I've met atheists who are complete assholes, so to me it's how will I achieve the political goal. I think religion is a major problem, but how do I achieve the political goal of getting beyond that? Maybe people see beyond that, and I'm just finding my way right now. I'm still thinking about this stuff. I don't know. I mean, not talking from a religious studies perspective, but more from an anthropological perspective. There's more to the political stuff than religion. Religion is part of identity, and I think people are fighting for power. People are fighting, using their identity, whether that's Republican or Democrat or Christian or whatever. I think it's a part of the problem. I don't think it is the problem. And I know a lot of atheists get upset when I say that, but religion is not the entire problem. It's a major component to it, yeah. And I don't think if I wrote a book that completely debunked Christianity just thoroughly, I don't think if it sold like hotcakes through the South, I don't think that would change the political dynamics. I think people would there's still going to be racist people. There's still going to be people, fighting for whatever political ideologies that they have. I mean, when you see, like in the New Testament, Jesus is essentially a socialist. He's saying feed the poor. Christians don't even care about that in the South. They're Republicans. They want welfare abolished. They don't want people on food stamps. So, I mean, if I disproved the existence of Jesus, it wouldn't matter to people like that. Their ideology would still be get rid of welfare, blame minorities or gay people or whatever. So I'm not sure if attacking religion is the best route to achieve political, goals. But, it did for me. It turned me around completely. I feel like less judgmental. I feel more inclusive. I feel like a better human being to my fellow human beings now that I don't have religion. But I'm not sure if that would be the same for other people. Getting rid of their religion, maybe they'll think about science differently, but they're still going to be fighting against, what they consider freeloaders or people who are damaging the country or whatever. So I'm not sure exactly the best route, I guess.
Well, yeah, and I hear you. I just don't have that all or nothing thinking. I just don't. In other words, I have the different opinion that there's like if I went up to they have that story where that kid goes up the ocean and all those turtles can't get there, and he picks up one turtle and puts it back, and then the dad says, you can't save all the turtles. He goes, yeah, but I saved this one. And I think that it's easy to feel the odds are against you. But that's if your goal is to make the change be, systemically, perfect. And I don't believe that there's such a thing. That's like saying, Martin Luther King did nothing because there's still blacks that don't have rights. Well, yeah, that's true. There are still African Americans that don't have rights, where they should be. And I experienced that even in California when I was living there. Not getting a job just because someone was African American. They don't say that, but it still happens. So what I'm saying is, but that doesn't mean that Yeah, so I mean that's like saying the civil rights movement meant nothing because everything's not changed. I mean, just because, in other words, like saying, well, just because we got an African American president, he couldn't have had a whole cabinet of African Americans. People would have been outraged. But why? There's a whole cabinet of white people.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I view it is even Sam Harris, trying to make religion as taboo as slavery. I don't think that's a realistic, expectation within the next 100 years even, especially, in other countries. But I mean, that's the thing too, is how much of the problem is religion and how much of the solution would be to to dismantle, religion. You look at sociologists like Peter Berger, in the 60s they were saying the trends, you look at the statistics, there's going to be no religion by the time, by the 80s. He had no idea that the religious right was going to freak out, the 70s and 80s and essentially make America as religious as Iran. So, when I started recognizing that I didn't believe, and other people were out there kind of reaching out, that meant a lot to me. Just one author reading one of his works and hearing his same problem, his same turmoil, so I'm with you on that. Saving the one turtle is a valuable thing, and I hope to do that, but I'm not sure exactly how, especially within the movement, and on top of that, the movement, it seems like such a strange thing too, because there are so many different kinds of non-believers, and that's the thing that I think the only thing we can unify under is, the First Amendment, the separation of church and state, the separation clause. Otherwise, there are fellow atheists who believe in UFOs, it's like, but I agree, there's a hole that needs to be filled. There are people in this field who should be out there kind of saying, hey, this is the evidence, this is the archaeology, this is the facts. Even if it is to the atheist reading community, it's still worth something. So to me, I would rather everybody see the facts and go from there, but that's not going to work. People are very tied emotionally to their identity, the identity they were raised in. But I think the main energy needs to be focused on keeping religion private. Allowing people to believe what they want, as long as it doesn't harm the public. And, keeping a separation of church and state. And I think that's kind of, when you look at the Founding Fathers, I definitely don't worship the secular documents either, but they were onto something. Coming out of Europe, these guys constantly fighting over religion. They said you can believe whatever you want, just keep it out of politics. I think that's the biggest threat right now. It's in public schools, they're trying to reject biology because it goes against whatever. In the climate change situation, there's a whole group of religious ideology behind that. So religion is kind of the problem there. But I think the mechanism for controlling that kind of sanity is politically through the separation of church and state. But at the same time, like you said, if I could get 10 kids to stop, the indoctrination they were born in and start questioning some of this stuff, maybe that'll come along too. But
I also think I can challenge everything you say, and I can still care about you as a person. I personally do not see a disconnect in that. But I always make sure people understand I don't hate religious people. I never challenge people. The only time I challenge someone is when they open their mouth and they say that I need to believe it. If they say I believe in space aliens, I won't say anything. But if they say that space aliens are real, I guarantee they're going to get challenged. If they say, that vaccination is not important, because the baby Jesus will keep them safe, I'm going to speak out against that. Especially if they're doing it to children. If they do it to themselves as an adult and decide they want to, not do precautions and harm themselves, well, I will speak out against it only if it's addressed to me. I don't feel like it's necessary, like you said. I don't see a necessity to change people to what I want. I see a necessity of speaking the truth because it has a right to be said. So
yeah, I'm with you on that. I think my problem is, how do I not be a dick, but at the same time, I'm motivated to kind of stop some of this crap that's going on, but it's like, I don't know how. How could I best, I think that's my main issue is, I'm motivated, but if I let that motivation take me, I'm going to be a dick, and I don't want to be a dick. I really think the atheist movement could value from more religious studies information getting out there. Just as they could from legal people getting out there and the secularist coalition fighting, crap that's going on in the schools. In anthropology, last semester I had to do ethnographic field work. The thing with anthropology in America is it's four field. You got biological anthropology, it looks at bones, DNA, and evolution.
Right.
You got cultural anthropology, which uses ethnography. You got archaeology, and then you got linguistic anthropology. And what American anthropologists try to do is use all four of those fields. And so, archaeology, for instance, you look at other ethnographies of similar cultures to kind of make sense of the archaeological data, comparative ethnography. And so that's what, that's why they try to train in all these, various methods. And the first thing I thought is, I'll go and I'll study an atheist group. I'll do an ethnography on an atheist group. Fortunately, I couldn't find any, so, and then, my second choice was I wanted to go do an ethnography with the Muslim school, to watch how, they indoctrinate young kids. But definitely, I wanted to, study an atheist group, even though that's, my thing is ancient religions. But also, I think there's a lot of value in studying modern atheism, too, as a movement.
Right, but what I meant is that the fact that I think it's like in 200 BC or something, it was like kind of like the first atheists, and there's in other words, I feel like that. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I feel like that we act like it's this new thing, that 6 years ago, everybody just started, catching on to. This shit's been around a long time. Like Robert Ingersoll, he was rocking out, man. They would have called him a new atheist now. He's out there fucking kicking ass and taking names, man. That dude did not. And he did that in the 1800s. He did that shit in the time that you think, God, they didn't kill his ass. I'm out there, but I want to be a humanist too. I don't want to give up. That's why I always tell people, one of the biggest reasons I'm so passionate, otherwise I really wouldn't care. I'd be like, you guys are all fucking idiots, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it does matter because I really care. If it wasn't for somebody, when I was a devout believer. I went to college because I was going to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And they told me I had to take classes on religion because most of the drug and alcohol counseling is spiritual based. And so I was pissed because I was a Christian and they were going to tell me I had to study other religion, and I was dumbfounded. Why should I have to do that? They're all wrong, even though I didn't know a jack shit about them. And but then once I took the world religions, I thought, wow, these are all kind of not that far from the same thinking. And still a pretty pitiful class compared to anything that you would have done, but. Then they made me take the other class that actually turned me into an atheist, which was understanding the Bible. And I thought I was going to get an A in the class because I thought, well, shit, I've read the Bible twice. The whole thing, And I've lived it my whole life. I was 36. I thought, no problem, man. I'm going to. And I felt like the most floundering class I've ever been in my life. Because they started bringing up, Babylonian and, all kinds of different stuff about the prophets. And they told me, that Satan, was never Lucifer, and the serpent can't be Satan. And it just, I felt like I was drowning. I felt like did I even know what the Bible was about? So I would say that in that point, when I realized that, I go, this stuff is man-made. And that's what I'm saying about what you have to offer. Man, just hearing the facts, I was done. I couldn't. It was impossible. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know how people could be liberal. Once I heard that, I was done. I didn't even know what an atheist was. I never even met an atheist. Never read an atheist book. I just knew I was done. This is some bullshit. I will not believe things that are false. I can't do that. I don't know how people keep doing that. Even if I didn't want to change. I had no desire to have my family disown me, and they're all devout Christians. Half of them are pastors and youth pastors, and even to this day. It's that exact same reason why I care. There's someone out there that needs you to tell them the truth, and they're living in a fucking delusion that they don't even want to, but they've never been given the opportunity to hear the truth.
I hear you. You never mean to burn down your life, but when you realize I can't believe this, the crap that comes with it. But I think another thing too, you talk about, humanism, on an epistemological level, yeah, I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't believe world religions. But on an ethical level, I consider myself a humanist, and I really kind of do feel people, if they want to believe this, that's fine, no matter how damaging it may be, as long as they don't take that crap into the public. So, to me, there's an understanding of, being a humanist. This is the only life we got. If people are going to cling to some false thing and it makes them happy, who am I to take that away from them? So I think on one level, on an intellectual level, none of it's true to me. But on an ethical, moral level, it doesn't matter. What matters is the maximum happiness for the maximum amount of people in the one life that they do have. And I think, that's kind of where I'm conflicted on where my place is in the political aspect of it. How I can achieve my goals, to kind of maximize happiness for as many people. But at the same time, being a humanist, if people want to believe this stuff, then, who am I to rob them of that? To me, the more important thing is to keep it out of other people's lives. If they want to believe it, that's fine. Keep it out of other people's lives. So to me, there's a problem there, though, because then, circumcision, I think, is wrong. The kid ain't got a choice. Being indoctrinated into a religion is wrong. So it's like, how do you balance your humanist ethics with, your atheist ideology? And that's the problem I'm kind of like constantly bouncing off of and changing my position on. And, that's just the thing, like most of my friends are religious, and I love them to pieces. And I don't want to be a dick to them, and I don't want to piss on their beliefs. But once it steps over into, voting and stuff, yeah, I think there's definitely a responsibility there, an ethical responsibility to say that's fine, but keep that to yourself.
You go back to even the religions and show that I believe that humanism, is basically something that came out of the free thinking of Christianity, but I don't think it actually started in Christianity or is limited to Christianity. The branches of it nowadays, in a way, sort of is. How do you know what a humanism is? If you ask 10 atheists, are you a humanist? Even if they all said yes, and you ask them, well, what does it mean to be a humanist? I don't think you're going to get the same answer. And so I think that one of the reasons goes back to that I don't think people even know where it came from, what it is. It's like this word that once you remove God, then this humanism, idea comes in. But people don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I never thought of either of those two things, but taking queer theory and kind of looking at heteronormativity in the ancient world, why not try the same thing with, like you said, humanism is a very specific thing that came out of a historical period of time.
Right. There's
all kinds of behavior that's very similar to that in ancient civilizations. And I'm sure there's evidence out there,
Yeah, well, I think that humanism does. So in other words, what's humanism as opposed to is it just no God? I think that when you brought up the thing before already about like a feminism type of a thing. I think a lot of humanism is feminism. So I think, as you said, there's plenty of religions that you could find that. Also queer. I think that you said queer theory. I think there's a lot of stuff could be from the ancient world where those ideas are founded in. A lot of people don't even, the Greeks were not following heterosexual. Some people know, but it's amazing to me always that how much people really don't know. It's completely dumbfounding sometimes, but there's a thing called a intellectual bias, or basically a scholarly bias, and the fact that you become so informed you can't remember what it was like to know nothing. And I think that, I'm just saying. So I think that the things.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I'm constantly reminded. Every time I read a paper to my girlfriend, she's like, I didn't know that, and I thought she knew it too, and it's like, holy crap. There's a lot of stuff people just don't know about. Right, the humanist aspect is probably what would motivate me more. Is, like I said, I don't think it's realistic to think that we can, disabuse people of religion. But I think we can work for maximum happiness in this life. So I think the humanism aspect is something that I think might be more up my alley. I don't want to, piss on everybody's religion. But at the same time, facts are facts, and I'm fascinated by studying religion. I'm fascinated by the whole thing, but it's like, the facts are going to be uncomfortable. But politically, humanism is where I stand. Ethically, that's where I stand. So, I never thought about, looking into humanism in the past, but there's probably a lot of stuff out there.
I think just human caring. It exhibited the fact of sharing and helping people. Just look like some of the Neanderthals, or some of the people. They have 60-year-old women. Or there's people that have are midgets or have birth defects, and somehow they lived a long life. Somebody was caring for them. I don't know how much but before 10,000 years, ago, there's not a lot of evidence of war. I mean, there's like almost nothing. So I mean, we were getting along a lot better. So the history of humanism is actually pretty good, you know, archaeologically.
I mean, I don't know, because it's kind of like the argument from the absence, you know, like there might have been some violence, and that's how a lot of people first interpreted the Neanderthal stuff, where they found a lot of healed, broken bones. But you could take that as, you know, they were hunting big game and they got injured, or you take it as warfare. But how I like to take that is they got healed. That means their community took them in.
Right.
You know, that's one of the aspects. You know, a lot of people say, well, we evolved to be social, we evolved altruism. And other people say, well, we evolved to kill each other and to, you know, be divisive and all that stuff. And it's like, I'd rather look at the stuff that's positive, the stuff that unifies us, and figure out how to get more people on board with that. And when you look at, you know, if somebody's not going to, you know, look at the evidence that the Gospels are, you know, not very historically accurate, that's fine. But if they look at it and they say, well, Jesus was a socialist or Jesus was a humanist, I think that's a lot more valuable as, you know, as a pragmatic, you know, as a matter of pragmatics. But at the same time, it's still the, you know, true is true and not true is not true. You know, some of this stuff you can't believe in the Bible, but I'm not going to force that on somebody. I'd rather force, hey, we're all in this together, you know, believe what you want. I don't know, maybe I'm too passive. I mean, at the same time, religion totally pisses me off. I'm with you on that. But
well, I always tell people, I don't think that everyone has to be everything to everyone. I mean, I also don't think there's a right way to be an atheist. I don't think there's a right way to be a humanist. You know, I think that there's this, like I said, I'm not an all or nothing person. And I'm not a tit for tat person. I have to do something to get something. I just think you just, like I said, for me personally, I just try to be authentic. And I don't think that authentic is on a, you know, a polar opposites of each other. I think that if you look at the you know, their archaeological record, would you say that everything's constantly polar opposites, or culture is kind of in between a lot? I mean, so I mean, I think that that's a reality. So I think that it is a reality that there's always been and always will be, you know, variation. It's a man-made, you know, false belief that there's this polar opposite. But I think some of that goes back to religion. Religion sets up a world where it's all black or white, where it's good or bad. There is no in between, you know. There's God's either loves you or he's going to kill you. I mean, it's that same kind of thinking that I think, you know, at the heart of why you need to say the truth and get it out there.